I thought Kenny Rogers.
So can you like just set your phone right here under it?
Let's go look at the
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. Kelly, sit down. Sit wherever you want, Kelly. All right, let's see if I can do this. I wrote down some stuff, so bear with me. Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming today. Scott James Laraway, son of Barbara Joan Laraway, Queen Bee. Love you, Grandma. Named after his father, James Marshall Laraway. Let's take a moment. Let's see. Let's take a moment to join in the Lord's Prayer. Join us if you'd like. If you don't remember the words, on the back of the pamphlet. And I forgot a pamphlet. Just in case I struggle. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory, forever and ever. Amen. We put the words only love on his life box, or whatever you want to call it. Everybody calls it something a little different. And only love. As I look around the room today, the words could never reign more true. Only love is with all of us here today. Each and every one of you, we're so grateful for all you to show up today. It's a huge. It means so much. The support, the calls, the cards, the visits. I had no idea how helpful a visit could be. The night of, that was huge. We were crying, and it was that was big. Each one of you had the chance to get to know a great man, and it's evident right here. Look around at everyone that's with us. We have 2 rooms. I promised Mom I wouldn't cuss, so I changed words. Dad was one of the hardest working son of a guns around. Yeah, you like that? He literally worked until his last day. He was out splitting wood for a fireplace. He was so excited about it. Chopped a bunch of cherry, which for you wood people, smells a little nicer. Got a better aroma for the inside fireplace. He was out there till sundown on a mid-December day. That evening, the word fortuitous comes to mind. He was in such good spirits. My colleague Joe and I, worked late, got home about 7 or 8. Dad and Mom were in the workshop tying one on a little bit. They were having a good time, good spirits. They were all smiles. We hung out for a while. Got to just enjoy those moments. I didn't even think about it, but that's one of the things I'm grateful for. That was my last moment with him, was with friends and family, and he was just smiles from ear to ear, giggling and telling jokes. Stories and memories are what keeps us together, what keeps the person alive in our memories. It defines us as a culture, humanity, the tales of our loved ones. I'm going to tell you a few stories for y'all today, and then we would love whoever's up to it, come on up and tell some more stories. Tell us your tale. Born at St. Mary's Hospital on a Friday afternoon, Grandma said 4:30 or so. Ironically, I was born on a Friday too. Scott was the, remember, skip that part. Barb and Jim welcomed their firstborn son, the first of four. He was a larger-than-life character. Now, I hope I'm not overstepping here. I'm going to borrow a few words from some of you in here that kind of rang in my head over the past few weeks. His youngest sister, Aunt Joni, said something that stuck with me for a while. It's so hard to believe someone so strong is actually gone. I thought nothing could hurt him. I thought he would always be there for us. I thought my big brother was always going to be there, as he always was. His nephew described him with the word patriarch. And that he was, the Laraway family patriarch. My earliest memories began with the two of us, father and son, living modest means. We didn't have a lot, but looking back, I remember thinking we had it all. Thinking back, he used to tell me stories by candlelight, wide-eyed and smiled. He'd always have some marvelous tale about a young prince with a magic sword going to save the princess. He-Man might have influenced the sword part. I remember going to work with him, where I learned what it was to build and craft something from nothing, to imagine it, think it up, build whatever you wanted, anything you could think of. At that moment, I looked at my father like he was the king in his stories, and I was his prince. It's funny how things come around full circle. He was my best friend through those young years, and as I grew up, as many of us did, rebelled against their father and often argued. Actually, a funny side story. In the words of Uncle Doug, he, our self-proclaimed referee between us, he often had to cool us down. In describing this one time, he said, doesn't matter what it is, they'll argue about it. One will say it's clear, and the next one, without fail, will say it's cloudy outside, and then they'll get into it. Not that we were actually mad or upset. It was just two like minds, stubborn to the bone, going at it. In fact, most times we'd yell at each other, and a moment later be working on something together in complete harmony. But it did, however, make others a little uncomfortable at times. All right, now where was I? Full circle. We began as best friends, as young men. We began as best friends, and as young men often do, rebelled against their fathers. But even through the worst of my rebellion, and most of you know, I didn't make it easy. No matter what, Dad was there for me. He'd get on my case about it, but no matter what, he was in my corner. Our lives grew apart for a little while, but as time and maturity came to both of us, me mostly with the maturity part, Dad with more patience, our lives drifted back together. As we learned to trust one another in each of our best attributes, we would once again become best friends, my confidant, my trusted advisor, and my PR rep. I missed that. I've been told many times I am a reflection of my father. With my youngest years spent just the two of us, I grew very much like him in many ways. So thank you. I admired him in so many ways. Story time. How strange it is to be annoyed by something and later long for it. This is evident in the stories. How many times have we heard a story or two from him? Some tall tale about crazy escapades he lived through. At times I'd roll my eyes and say, "Oh, brother, I've heard this story like 50 times." And now I long to hear it. Stories of a motorcycle trip across the country at 19. Stories from the River Queen, Captain Laraway. Stories of a teenager running away before a family trip, and Grandpa ignoring it because he came home to a fridge full of PBR. Stories from Amway, stories from friends, stories from work, Dex Plus, stories from vacations, stories from the Derby. So many stories from the Derby. I've heard so many stories, and now that I can't hear them from his voice, I cherish them all. Mom said not to say he would give the shirt off his back. It's too cliche. After I thought about it, she was right. He would never give a shirt off his back. They wouldn't fit him anyway. But if you were a Laraway or a friend, he would do what he could to help you. And if you needed something built, he was right there to help you, even on Easter morning. A laugh so contagious, you might start laughing if you were present. He always had a big heart for the girls. Never say no to his nieces, his granddaughter, sisters, mom, of course, his wife. And kind of a ladies' man to his last day. Another side story. On Mondays, we work in the office, my secretary and I, and, I'll run errands as, work does, blah, blah, blah. I'd come back, and there he was. He went and got her a cup of coffee, and he's chit-chatting with her, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, you guys are supposed to be working. Or up at the corner gas station, they all knew him by name. I'd walk in there with him. They'd say, "Hey, Scott," and I'd be like, do I not exist? What's going on? Like, I wasn't even there. Speaking of ladies' man, let's jump back to, 1987? Where he would meet swept a young lady off her feet at the Westwood Ranch House, who would soon become his wife, my mother, and I think we're all grateful for that, too. Everyone in the room got to know him in a different way, a unique way. And he must have touched your heart as well, because no one came here just to listen to me today. It's truly amazing to see all of you here. It warms my heart so. So let's do our best to keep his memory alive and share our stories with him. Today especially, but not only today, to continue to share them and the others who have passed on. They live within us now. We owe it to them to keep their memories alive and true. For memories are all we truly have. And those are worth more than any prize. They are the prize. So here I'd like to pass the mic along. We want to hear some of your stories. If I can do this up here, you can too. Or if you aren't ready, to speak up here, maybe you wrote something down, we can read it for you. Not me, somebody is a better reader than me. Or if you don't want to get up, we have a portable mic. We can bring it down if you're struggling to get up. Stay seated, etc., etc., etc. And look at that, I got through it. All right, so come on up. All right, Bill.
Hey. Oh, horseshit. Okay, I'm Bill Fillmore, and I met Scott back in 1969. Came up from Detroit and went to history class, and here was his blue-eyed, wolf-eyed guy just kind of like staring at me. And I knew that was either trouble or excitement. And I was right. Going back to the days of Honda Hangout. Yeah. I mean, damn. He had this 350 many moons ago. Most of you don't even know what a 350. He had a Honda, and it was a lightweight one, and he drove that all over the place. He let me drive it all over the place. I had a car, he had the Honda, and we were a legend in our own minds. Pinto for a while, yeah. Remember those days. Then after high school, his main job right after high school was with OAK, Owens Ames Kimball. He got a job working construction. And if he would have stayed there, he probably would have owned that place. You know, and it was like, premier. I don't even know it's in business anymore. But, well, he worked there, and I had I doubt he would have made something. But it was Laraway. He had a buddy named Jerry Elmer that owned the River Crane. And he decided, he could have had a career, insurance, a job, or he could have owned his own business and had a boatload of fun. And my buddy Laraway chose the fun. And he did. He worked at Amway. There's a whole bunch of X-rated stories on that one. He went to Dex Plus. He was a wizard with wood. He could build anything. My mother, who's 91 years old, still has a plant stand that he built, I don't know how many years ago. I go in his workshop and there's, pool cues, all sorts of stuff that he could build. And then these decks. My brother has a deck made by him that is just stout as stout can be. He used to fix things all the time. Josh mentioned that. I mean, I don't know how many times he'd come over, because Laraway would always stop over, just out of the blue. And I'd be complaining about this or that. And there was more than once that by the time I was done complaining, it was fixed. And he did it. And he did stuff like that all the time. Oh, and then from 2012 to literally, 2012 is where we ended. 1996 is when we started. We went to the Derby every year. And, some of you go hunting, some of you go fishing, some of you go camping. My male bonding was a Derby. You would study. We would study. I don't know how many times we hung out in the shop and going over past performances and such. And there were years that we came back with a wad of hundreds that would choke a horse. There was one year I came back with 72 cents, and everywhere in between. But those were the days. Grandpa. Laraway loved his grandkids. I mean, I just think about how he was always kind of gruff with his kids, but he was a powder puff with those grandkids. He always had some good sayings. My wife explained to one thing. I sometimes have a way of saying things that perturb people, and even with my wife. And one day he was over, and looked at her and said, Kim, always remember, whenever Fillmore talks, think of an asterisk. And that saved me more than once. Ain't it, honey? He could pull things off. I mean, there was so many times we were lost or we were in trouble. And I don't know how he did it, but he got us through it time and time again. You know, and it wasn't just those things. I mean, many of you, I remember he used to have these cookouts. And he'd be in these cut-off sweatpants, his ratty-ass T-shirt. He had these back brace in there. And he pulled it off. He made it look like a fashion statement. And he did. Unbelievable. He pulled it off. And one thing, I was told by my better half I shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna anyway, because it's so Laraway. You know, one time recently, talk about the Derby. We were over there giving our condolences to Mary and the kids, and just first time I'd ever been up there, really, without Scott being there. It took me a while to realize that. But anyway, Mary goes, we were talking, and whenever you talk about Fillmore, you're going to be talking about the Derby. And she goes, well, at least he never, bet the house payment. You want to bet. But talk about pulling off. There were times, twice, that I know he did that. And it was spooky as hell. But he had did all that studying. He had did all that thinking. He had did all that Laraway does. And he came back both times with a wad of hundreds. And that's my buddy Scott.
Thanks, Bill. It was awesome. Who's next? Come on. You coming up, Angel?
Yeah, I'm gonna come up and get it out of the way. Well, Scott was bigger than life, and growing up with him was always an adventure. He was definitely, the girls sure liked him, and one of the things I could thank him for is to turning me on to some good music. He always listened to The Who. He listened to 10 Years After, and the Beatles' White Album. And I don't know if I would have really got a feel for all that music if it hadn't been for him. And he did always, treat me and my girls, and we were always in his heart, and he always tried to do whatever he could for us. And he definitely loved his family. And I just wanted to read a quick poem, and then I'll be done. Remembering you is easy, I do it every day, but missing you is heartache that never goes away. I hold you tightly within my heart, and there you will remain. You see, life goes on without you, but we'll never be the same. So, God bless you, Scott. Rest in peace.
Hi, buddy. Thanks for coming. Probably won't be able to get through this. Any of you that know me know that I cry when I open a new Myers, so it's pretty big. So, anyways, yeah, thanks for coming. Means a lot to the family. A lot of good friends here. A lot of good stories. Scott lived and loved for his family. He was so proud of Josh and Nick and the men that become. I could never be, bear with me, I could never be Mary's number one fan when she was singing when he was there. One time we had a party and Mary's band was playing and Steve, and he didn't like the stage. So we built this huge stage so that she could have her due. And then, of course, we went in and took her down, but it was no big deal to him. But he was going to have that stage for her. And then when Mary had her national video with Beth Hart, he was so proud of her, too. So, once again, I'm number 2 fan. I said to Scott, because he used to pick up Chance and Lydia, and I says, that get tough, doing that? And he goes, I love it. I got my time with them alone. He loved it. Scott was a man of love, strength, and humor who could be quite direct at times. Seldom did you wonder what he thought, because he would tell you without sugarcoating it. He could be a softy too. When he got older with the gray hair and the beard, some kids would come up to him like he was Santa. And one time we were talking, he was being boisterous, and all of a sudden he just stopped. And I look, and there's a child there. And he just looked, and give a little nod, give a little wink. And when the kid walked away, he says, yeah. So sometimes kids get scared when I talk. So I just, he gave me that little twinkle. Scott wasn't not religious or overly spiritual, but I do believe he believed in the afterlife, because he always said there'd be a great big party when he was through, and I think that's true. And Scott, thanks for being a great friend and teaching me how to countersink a lag bolt. We'll miss you, and have fun at your party.
Come on, anybody else? Daring? Come on, Kelly.
I'm Kelly. I'm Scott's niece, and we were just so lucky to have the time that we had with him. We loved him so much. And he was a creator, as you've heard. He loved crafting things for his family and loved ones, and he made me the best cutting board. And I always said I need to tell him how much I love that cutting board, because I did. I've had a lot of wooden cutting boards, and this one was the best. And I finally told him I remembered. I said, Uncle Scott, you made me the best cutting board. And he said, if you take care of it, it's going to last forever. And I'm going to take care of it. And I'm going to think of him every time I use it. And I just loved him so much, and I'm going to miss him.
Hello, my name's Julie. I'm also Uncle Scott's niece.
I want to exemplify his like energy by telling the story. When he showed up to my high school graduation open house. This is a kind of like a quote that stuck around for a while, but he rolled up and kind of starts, chatting and mingling, and then kind of like abruptly ends the conversation, and then just kind of goes like one of these. All right, now where's my juju? And that's something like we've all been saying for a while now. But that being said, I just wanted to share like a couple text messages that we had exchanged in the last year. Oh, technology these days. Go. So this was a day before like the 4th of July celebration that we've spent in Cedar with the family. He said, it's funny, it's great, but one more day. Let's get this party started. Celebrate good times, come on. It's a celebration. We are family. I got all my family with me. Love, peace out, silly emoji, shocked emoji, wink emoji, and celebrate emoji. This next one was, I can't figure out if it was like before I got engaged, it was the same day, or after. It could have been like a little bit of a spoiler. But he said, "Hi, Julie. I'm so excited for you guys. I just want to celebrate good times. Come on." He said, I'm beside myself with joy. I love you. Where's my juju?" And then he said, "I'm going to have the biggest bonfire ever in the history of mankind for you both." He said, "Uncle Scott, please, can we have a bonfire?" Yes. So it's not going to be hard to remember and honor Uncle Scott, because I'll be celebrating all the good times, and I'll be burning the heck out of bonfires with the finest of lumber. I love you, Uncle Scott. Rest in peace.
Wow. Look at everybody. I think a lot of us can come up here and tell great stories. But the greatest story is all of you. All the people out here that I've met with Scott, all the way back to the beginning. And don't know you have a good person is by all the people that are here today. There's a lot of people out here that I love. I don't get to see enough. And I didn't get to see Scott recently, and I regret that. So I'm thankful to being able to see you and to say hello in Scott's honor. I love you.
My name is Steve Rice. I know Scott the pre-teenage years. I don't remember when we met, but I remember one incident, and I think it was on my birthday, my 16th birthday, and I was supposed to get my driver's license that night. And we skipped school together. And my sister was babysitting over in Comstock Park, and she would call in for us. We skipped a lot of school, all of it. I mean, one year I think I skipped 70-some days, and my sister called in once for us. We'd hang out with her over at the house there in that Comstock Park, and she called in. Hi, this is Mrs. Laraway. I'm calling in for Steve. Click. And that triggered. We got called into Mr. Lane's office, but it was lunchtime, and I asked Scott, his 350, his blue 350 Honda. Can I use your bike to go down to get something, some snacks or something at the store in Comstock Park? And he's, oh yeah, sure, go ahead. So coming back, I did a wheelie on 3 Mile by Coit, and I came down, and there was a state police right across. Oops. So I panicked and took off, and he took off after me, and I'm, trying to maneuver in these, city streets. But finally, a sharp corner I couldn't make, and I went down and laid the bike down, and got up and started running. Then I remember, it was still idling, so I went back, turned it off, and then just put my head down, ran through a row of hedges, and a good thing there wasn't a tree there. But, so I just plowed through that and got back to the house and told Scott. And our whole the Honda hangout, I don't ever remember really any ill feelings between any of us. We were just kind of carefree. When Scott was, oh, okay, I told Scott what happened. And he goes walking down there, and he could see the commotion, but he couldn't see the police yet. So he calls out, officers, someone stole my motorcycle. And they said, well, is it blue? And he said, yeah. He said, oh, come on down here. So anyways, he finally confesses up, and then brings the police back to the house there. So, I have the honor of being responsible for having his bike impounded, and Scott ending up with me down at the Grand Rapids police station. And so I went through the thing, and I didn't get my driver's license that night, that's for sure. But I remember, and then my dad came down to get me out. And I don't know, Mrs. Laraway, did you get Scott out of that? Do you remember that? Yeah, okay. Okay. And then had to haul his bike home. And so I'm in the house, and my older sister, Sharon, she needed to go out to Ada. So I hear Scott coming tooling through the trails with his 350. And my sister, asking, will you take me out there? So we just got the bike back from riding on the road with no driver's license. It had a stolen plate on it. We got through the network out there at Fort Hill, no insurance. Yeah, So, and sure enough, Scott agreed to give her a ride. And I see him, bouncing through the trails up to Dunnigan and then heading off, because you get out there, you had to go trails and roads and stuff. And I thought, boy, I guess we didn't learn anything here. And so, yeah, I was responsible for getting Scott, hauled into the Grand Rapids Police Department and having his bike impounded. And I think it cost him $100, if I remember right, to get that out or something. And I don't know if I ever paid him back. So, but yeah, Scott was like a natural leader. I was not the natural leader, but I remember building a Honda Hangout and stuff, and that became such a big part of our life, until we kind of, grew up, graduated, get married, and, get jobs, and we parted. And it was just sad I found that, the next generation, and I don't know if that's Jeff's generation, that whatever happened to the Honda Hangout? How did it burn down? Do you know? And but I heard, I guess, the next generation didn't appreciate all the labor that went into that. But it was so popular. We first built the upper part and attached it to a tree. And it never, in the storms, never blew over. But it was so many people coming back to parties and stuff there, we had to build a lower addition on it to hold the overflow. But yeah, one by one, we're leaving. We're departing this world, and but we had enough for ball teams, put ball teams together, whether basketball or football or baseball. And we'd all show up someplace, and on our side ladder, the court rights or Bill Yobs, shooting hoops, and But and then when Scott got his 750, like I said, you kind of always the leader, you know. And I remember that, boy, that was, and I think it was the first year Honda 750s came out that he bought his, and he worked with me for a few weeks at a furniture company, but you know, I don't think working for somebody was in his. I think he was a natural to be self-employed, and so when you hear about deck plots or what, and but just we were just carefree, fun-loving, just teenagers growing up, and you know, at Mr. Laraway's house or our house or Tim Beckett's house or somewhere, you know. But we all had those motorcycles. That was such a big part of our growing up. Was the Honda Hangout, and it was yeah. I often thought about Scott. Even tried to find him. Stopped over to Mrs. Laraway's house, and but nobody was home. Trying to find out, you know, how to connect with Scott, and that's why you see some familiar faces now. Bill Fillmore, you know, Bob Maney, and haven't seen for years. So it was a big part of my life, and Scott was, you know, them years, and like I said, just jovial, fun. You know, we had, you know, such good times together. No dirt bike riding, so it was a privilege to know. Thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm Zach Laraway. I'm nephew of Scott, son of Jeff, Cindy, and my late mother Carol. For those who know, and some do and some don't, my mother passed away probably about 10, 11 years ago. And when that happened, it was very sudden. And this is like a great story of Uncle Scott, because I love to we all have these really sweet stories that we know that just you know, and then we have these opportunities to share that with everybody. So I would just want to make sure that while I have you all here, that I can share a sweet story that I've always had to myself, kind of. When my mother got sick, it was very sudden, and I was actually my dad and my stepmother had just moved to Colorado, so I was kind of living alone. I had my brother, and then he, you know, my brother Noah was in the midst of moving to Colorado too. And she got really sick, and so when it happened, it seemed like all the Laraways and the Rockwells and everybody had kind of figured that out before I did, and they were all at Butterworth Hospital. And if you know what an ICU conference room looks like, it can either be the best place in the world or it can be the worst place in the world. In this particular case, it was pretty bad, and I just remember I was the last one to show up in this ICU conference room, and I had all my family. They were already in there, and I was the last one to kind of come in, and there was one seat open, and when you get in there, you know, there's a doctor who's telling you a prognosis, what's going on with a loved one, and you really never want to be in that position. But you know, I was there, and there was one seat open. It was right next to my Uncle Scott, and Uncle Scott's a big guy. He had some big knees, so I kind of had to squeeze in there a little bit. And I sat down next to him, and you're listening to a doctor tell you, like, hey, here's some things that are going on with your mother. These are some things that you need to know about. You know, this is what it's kind of looking like. And, you know, I'm sitting there, and it's kind of, you know, for myself and for my brother, you know, listening to what a doctor said. And Laraways were some smart guys. No offense, we're not doctors. We're not in that realm. And he, you know, you have a doctor talking to you, and just almost on cue, sitting next to my Uncle Scott, is I have this big kind of bear paw that comes around on the chair, and he put it on next to me. Now he probably did that because his arm was getting tired. I'm totally understand that. But he did that, and he probably never knew, but that was exactly what I needed at that time. Is somebody to kind of give you that support. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, get the prognosis, like, hey, you know, yeah, mom's sick, you know, she's gonna need some things to happen. So we all kind of disperse, and he's kind of sitting there talking, and everybody kind of goes their which way. And Uncle Scott wanted to have a smoke outside, and so we went in the elevator, and I didn't get an arm around me on the elevator. He just kind of sit in the back, and I was like, okay, yeah, press 1. That goes all the way down. Get down. And of course, probably the worst place in the world to smoke is right outside of a hospital. It has a big sign that says no smoking right there. And there's Uncle Scott right underneath of it, just kind of leaning back and going, I'm like, oh, okay. And we're just kind of talking, and he, processing things that happened to a loved one. And, there's some things running through my mind and things that were happening. And Uncle Scott says, shut up. And I was like, okay, that's a little abrasive. And he stomped out a cigarette, and he just gave me the world's biggest hug. And there's kind of few moments in your life where you don't necessarily need to have words, and that was one of them. And he knew that at that time, you didn't need to talk, that there were no words that were going to console you. It was just a hug. It was just a favor that he knew what I needed exactly at that time. It sounds weird, but I was kind of speechless. I'm like, is my Uncle Scott hugging me right now? I don't think he's hugged me in like 10 years. But he knew exactly what I needed at the time. What I would like to propose is, I understand, there's things that are going around, and if you would like to, I would ask that everybody, if you can, stand up. If we can all get up for a second, and maybe for a minute, I'll count you down if you want me to. If we can all stand up and just look to the person in the back of you, to the side of you, whether it's a hug or a handshake, and give each other that moment of grace and let them know that you're there, that you're here, that you can do that. I would ask that everybody can kind of do that. Maybe take a minute to do that. I'll wrap it up and have everybody sit down. Right. All right. We're not done. This was Uncle. He's still here in our hearts. He's here right now. I feel like if he was here, he would say, okay, that's enough hand holding and hugging. You can sit back down. I just want to wrap. I want to just tell everybody that it's moments like this that please take that time to hug your loved ones, to hug your sons and daughters, to hug your grandmas and your cousins, and those that are in your life, because we will probably never run across, I know we'll never run across another Uncle Scott, but it's moments that you can share with other people that make it so somebody like Scott Laraway is not gone. He's still with us. He's with all of us right here, and he will always be with us. So thank you.
I've been up here and I can't talk yet. Okay, so I know it's gonna. I know it's gonna be hard for me to talk, but I'm sitting right there and I'm looking at his face, and he's saying to me, "You can do this." I'm like, "Yeah, I can." And there's been times that's happened to me quite often where I think it's going to be really difficult in a situation, and he's someone that you think, what would he say? What would he do? And it's always like, just say it straight, and be strong. And it's like, okay, I can do that, so I'm going to try. I just want to say, Zach was talking about hugs, and it made me think, yeah, we all know, like, we go up to the house and we'd get this big hug, and you knew you were getting a hug. I mean, it wasn't like a tap. It was like you kind of like sucked you in. It was like, ah. Like sometimes it would take my breath away. Like I don't like it, and then he would hold this. So I'd be like not breathing for a moment, but it's like that's all right, you know. And then I'd like, and then he was big, so it was like I was sort of like stuck right up in him, and then so I'll miss that. And he's someone on my birthday every single year. He would always call and leave me a message. And that was always a funny message to get every year. And then he'd always say, "It's your brother Scott," like if I don't know who it is. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then I just want to say happy birthday. And like he'd say something funny or whatever. And there was one year he missed it by one day. And I tell you, he beat himself up over that. He's like, "I can't believe I missed your birthday." And I'm thinking, it's just the next day. But he really was upset that he did not get my birthday message on my birthday. And Zach was talking about him being there and being supportive, and just a few things. Like when we got our house, like with him knowing so much, he had a lot of knowledge, and he was just like your go-to. Like, all right, you know, I could always call him and ask him about anything. He knew. He would just know. So we get the house, and we're excited. It's our first house, and we have him. Of course, there's an inspection on it, but we get him there because, you know, Uncle Scotty, or not. Now I call him Uncle Scott because I have my son, but Scott, we get him over there, and because I value his opinion. Like, what did we do? What did we do? He's like, "It's not a great house, but it's a good house." And he's like, and that was it. He's like, I'm like, okay, I guess that's good enough. And then he goes, "It's sturdy." And I'm like, all right, well, then we're good, you know. But it's just, he looks straight up. It's not a great one, but it's a good one. And he's helped us anytime we've called him, because he can, as everyone's mentioned, like how he can fix anything. And you call him up, and it's like, okay, I'll be there. And then he just give you the time, and he'd be there. Boom, boom, it'd be done. I don't know, we were on vacation once, and a tree came through our front window, and we heard of it. We couldn't get back home, but when we got back home, there was a tarp on the window, and the trees all chopped up, taken care of. I mean, it's just like he was right there to take care of anything. And a tree came back not too long ago in our backyard, and I'll be over, you know. It's just like, okay, I'll be there on this date and chop up the tree. And then, you know, you guys are taking care of it, but here we go, I'll chop it up for you. And so he was just somebody I could always rely on. I'm doing pretty good up to now, but, and that's gonna be a something that nobody will take that place. And I'm going to really feel that void. And it's going to be hard because even, Mary, I tell you, even since just these last 3 weeks, there's a couple things in our house that, like, the faucet's dripping. The faucet's dripping, and it's like, we need to replace this. And it's like, well, if he was here, he'd be the one I'd call. He'd be over here fixing this for me, because it's like none of us, we're not handy like that. And it's like, so I just wanted to share that with you, and it's going to be really missed by us. And thank you all for being here. And there is a lot of love in this room, and I am hearing a lot of great stories and what a good friend he was, and that says a lot to his honor. He'd be very proud and happy that you're here. And I think
I just want to say what a great guy Scott was and how much I'm going to miss him. Rest in peace, Scott.
Oh, I have one more story. I just thought of it. I was thinking about if Jack wanted to say anything, and I don't know if he does, but for him, I'll say this. Recently, it was, when did we go on that trip? Was it last summer? Last summer. So just recently, Jack was going to go, my son Jack was going to go on this trip. We don't travel a lot, so this trip was a school trip. And we saved and we worked, we wanted him to get on this trip to Europe. And it was a big thing. We were really focused on it. And the night before the trip, you have to take, during that time, it was during the COVID where you couldn't travel, you had to have your COVID test. And the night before, he tested positive. So he couldn't go on this trip. So just that night we had to scramble and cancel and everything. He couldn't go on it, and it was something he was looking forward to, and our whole family really was supportive and was really helping, was excited for him too. And I tell you, Scott, I don't even think you know this, Scott texts me like every single day to ask me how Jack was doing, and he's like, and I thought, wow, that really, like, you wouldn't think anyone would think of it, like, oh, he didn't go on a trip, whatever. He texts me every darn day and asks me, how's Jack doing? Is he doing okay? And because he knew how bummed it could be, and he was so excited for him to go. And I just thought that was, like, he took time out of every single day for like 3 weeks. It was a long time. He texts me, how's Jack doing? I'm like, he's good. And then it's like, next day, how's Jack doing? And it's just another thing he would share, or that I'll share with you. Just he took time to check on his family, and he was very loving. So that's it. And then I can say, Scott, I did it. He said I could do it.
Any other brave souls, or we're done for the day? Oop, we got a winner.
Oh, geez. It's awful being short. Hi, Mary. I just want to say I'm going to miss my gig partner. Julie? Which one's Julie? That's what happened when Mary would start singing. Scott's like, dance. And we danced the night away, and we carried equipment, and we drank a little bit. Him more than me. During that time with Scott, there is one thing I learned: how to love somebody. He loved you. And I will miss that big, boisterous person coming at me to give me a hug. And I watched him watched Mary. And I thought, do I have that same look in my eye when I'm watching my husband? And I will always strive to do that. So, I love you guys. I will miss him.
That one almost made me break. I was trying. Nick, you want to come up to read it for Mom? This last part, I'm going to be reading on behalf of my mom. People think death is a tragedy. It most certainly is not. People living their entire lives without experiencing life is a tragedy. And as most of you know, especially today, Scott experienced life. A big man with big dreams, big ideas. We dreamed away the world together. I have so many wonderful memories. So many wonderful and beautiful memories with him. I'd love to relate them all to you because if our lives meant anything together, is that love can conquer all, and that love is all there is. He was the one to always encourage our family, lift us up, and not to take no for an answer, at least not on the first try. In my celebration and review of our lives together, I offer you all the world, that each one of you may experience the joy, the laughter, the intensity, and the peace of being with someone you love, for any amount of time, fully and completely, like me and Scott. As most of you know, Scott was a very prideful person. He had a lot of achievements in life, plenty of things to be proud of. One could even say he had a little bit too much pride in himself. And I think that was true, because he needed to share that pride with other people. He needed to be proud of other things. I think it started with his wife, Mary. He was so proud of her singing career. So many things that she did phenomenally. Like Doug said, he was his biggest fan. But he still had a lot of pride still. So he's like, I'm sure he said, well, I got two nice boys. Been hearing that a lot. How proud he was of his boys. And he still had a lot of pride. Well, I got my brothers and sisters. Can be proud of them. They got kids. I'm of course proud of them. Even my friends, I can be proud of them. My dad, Uncle Scott, Grandpa. If there's one thing to take away from this celebration is he will always be your biggest fan, no matter what. So if you're ever feeling low or down, just think of him. Even you can think of myself or Josh or Mary, because we got a lot of his pride too. Thank you very much. I got one more little story for you. I was thinking of when I was sitting there listening to these beautiful stories. Thank you so much. Those were amazing. I was trying my best not to rain over here. Me and Dad fixed a lot of stuff, and I'm in the shop the other day getting it ready to have company over, and there's a few things that we had talked about fixing. One of the fans was broke, and the thing on the floor was broke, and the two of us didn't get around to fixing it, so that was my job to fix it. And I'm looking through his shop, and I always razz him about his organization because I couldn't find fasteners or certain screws. Like, where is it? Where is it, Dad? I'm looking in there, and I found myself saying, Dad, now I gotta find it. So I gotta find all the stuff that he had for me to do. Those are the moments that give me the most. I would always ask, hey, where is this? What are we doing? I know he'd say, I taught you well enough. You got it in yourself, but I still thought he'd still be here to just talk to him. I think we'll wrap it up. That was beautiful. Thank you all for coming. That means the world. Big time. So I'll end there. If y'all want to hang around, there's some food in that other room right there. We can hang around, and as we mentioned many times, stories. Share your stories. Talk to people. That's what matters. Thank you. Love you.